All right, welcome to Education Station. I'm Joshua Peguero. Thank you for joining us right here at KLAS 8 News Now Vegas. So we're going to start with an exclusive conversation I had today with the Nevada State Superintendent, Dr. Victor Wakefield. He was appointed to the position on October 27th. The previous Nevada State Superintendent of Public Instruction was Joan Ebert, who is now the superintendent of the Clark County School District, which is the 5th largest school district in the country. One of the things I asked Dr. Wakefield is about improving test scores. So we're going to listen to that, and we'll come back here.
What do you say to some of the parents or lawmakers or stakeholders in regards to test scores? I know there's been an improvement year over year, but there still exists sort of that COVID slide, right? Like before the pandemic in Nevada, kids had higher test scores, especially in CCSD. What do you think you can do to improve that outcome, continue improving that outcome year over year?
I appreciate your framing because I see it in two ways. First is we are making progress, so I want to celebrate that. But I also believe we need to hold an absolute bar of excellence, and we have room to grow. So in terms of progress, the good news is the most recent round of state tests, the recent round of graduation rates all showed upticks. So for elementary school English language arts, for example, we are nearly back to the 50% level, which is about 50% of our students are at or above grade level, according to state standards. And then in math, we're about 45% as a state, which is almost back to where we were pre-pandemic. And then in graduation rates, we had a big jump from about 81% to 85%, which is a testament to the hard work of educators and leaders. But when I really zoom back a little bit more, and I think you were getting at this, I think we have to hold an even higher bar. One of the data points that really sits with me is we have a high number of disconnected youth in our state. So these are 16 to 24-year-olds that are neither in school nor employed. I think in Clark it was almost 70,000 students. And so to me that is a sign that our system isn't yet delivering. We're not setting kids up with the kind of career opportunities, high-wage jobs, or post-secondary or college or military opportunities that they need. And so for me, I am hyper fixated on that issue. So that way, as we make progress, and we should celebrate it, we shouldn't, sort of rest on our laurels. We are far from where we need to be, and that's part of what I want to do as a department is to help set that bar of excellence and then support our districts and schools to reach it.
So these are 70,000 youths who aren't participating in the school system, like don't have a diploma, and they're not enrolled in anything?
So that data point is 16 to 24-year-olds that are neither in school nor employed. Some could actually have a diploma, but not be employed, which is an even more important thing for us to ask. Are we setting up young people with the career interest or the in-field credentials that they need in order to access jobs?
When you look at CCSD and you see all the improvements, and I bring it up because it's the 5th largest school district in the country, and it's the largest one in the state of Nevada, are there certain things at CCSDs that they're doing right that you would look at them to model, or other schools around the state to model, or is it just an outlier because of how diverse it is and large?
Well, it is an outlier by scale. There's no question. It's got to be one of the most unique states in the country where one district has 2/3 of the students for the state. But I think there's a ton of lessons to learn, and there's been a lot of hard work. I think a few things that come to mind. One is I know that CCSD put a lot of effort into high quality instructional materials, making sure that students, regardless of which school they're at, are getting the highest quality English language arts and math curriculum. This is a trend across education improvement across states, is to really take that seriously, to put the best materials in the hands of teachers, so that way their job is a little bit easier. That way that when a student maybe shifts schools, they're not sort of seeing something brand new, it's more consistent, and we see that the achievement results sort of follow when you have a really strong instructional curriculum plan for a school district. So that's something that comes to mind as a strength. I also will give a shout out to my predecessor at NDE, Joan Ebert, Superintendent Ebert. I think has brought a real collaborative spirit. She's very communicative and cares a lot about building trust, rebuilding trust for the district. So, I've known her for a long time and have respected her for a long time. So I believe that the district's in good hands leadership-wise as well.
Now, from your vantage point, when you're looking at it as a state superintendent, looking at all these different schools across the state, what do you see as the most challenging thing moving forward, like the biggest obstacle in public education here in Nevada?
Well, when I was interviewing with the state board, so the state board puts 3 candidate names forward to the governor, and so I appreciated their unanimous support, and I very much appreciate Governor Lombardo's trust in me to serve in this capacity as a member of his cabinet. I described our literacy rates, our foundational learning, especially related to English language arts and literacy and phonics, as being the most important priority for the state. I think this is true for a few reasons. One is that just from a outcomes perspective, there are fewer students at grade level and above than below. Excuse me, I said that backwards. There are too many students that are below grade level in the state. And the data is very clear that reading by 3rd grade, elementary literacy outcomes are really predictive of high school graduation rate, of career earnings, of even health outcomes. And so I think everything builds upon these foundational academics. We have to get that right. If there's one thing that parents expect their school to deliver on beyond a safe and affirming space, it is that their child is learning to read and they're being taught with the best methods. So to me, I just think that is sort of make the main thing the main thing. Let's get our foundational academics in place: literacy, math, science, social studies, civics. And I think that everything builds from there. Doing that is harder than just saying it. It's a big implementation challenge because we have to do more. There's been some good reforms around things like early screeners, so we can find out if kids are off track or on track. There's been a law that was passed again in 2023 about retention. So if a student isn't reading by 3rd grade, then there should be a conversation if they're ready to move on or if they need to continue to get those foundational skills in place. So those are a few things that come to mind, and curriculum, again, is a really key piece of that puzzle too.
Now, if we look at the numbers, Dr. Wakefield there, you heard him talking about early childhood literacy, in particular this Read by 3 program, where they want to get students, it's a whole state initiative that was launched initially by State Superintendent at the time, Joan Ebert, who is now the superintendent of CCSD, but it was to get kids by 3rd grade to be able to read at the 3rd grade reading level. Last school year, for 2024-2025 school year, only 2 in 5 CCSD students were reading at that grade level. Now, I bring this up because Dr. Wakefield, during that interview, that exclusive interview, one of the things he talked about is an investment in early childhood education and how Nevada as a state lacks that sort of investment. And so one of the things that he's planning to prioritize as state superintendent, whenever lawmakers get back together within, I think it's we're currently 2025 and the 2027 year, is an investment into preschool, an investment into early childhood to make sure that by the time kids are in 3rd grade, they know to read at their current reading level. Because if not, then according to Dr. Wakefield and other numerous studies, they say kids just have a hard time catching up when they're in 10th grade, when they graduate high school. And so, this all falls back on making sure CCSD is the destination school district is what they're trying to do. Is also making sure that students are best prepared. Next, we're going to discuss another topic, which is in regards to charter schools. Charter schools in the state of Nevada are now the 2nd largest school system by total enrollment. So we're going to have that conversation next. Welcome back to Education Station. Again, my name is Joshua Peguero. So we have a conversation with Dr. Victor Wakefield. He's the new State Superintendent of Public Instruction. He was working in the Washington, D.C. area, but he's familiar with Nevada and Clark County here for more than a decade prior to moving out east. And one of the topics I brought up during our interview was the explosion in growth in charter schools. Now, in the state of Nevada, charter schools are considered now the 2nd largest school system. They've overtook Washoe County, which the largest city in Washoe County is Reno. So they overtook Washoe County. And the thing is that parents now want choice. It's one of the things I hear when I'm out there reporting is that parents want a different choice other than CCSD, which is here in Southern Nevada. So the 5th largest school district in the country. And at the same time as we're seeing a growth in charter schools statewide, we're seeing a decline in enrollment at CCSD. So I asked the state superintendent if there's a correlation between the two and whether he's concerned. So we're now going to listen to that interview.
Now, one of the things we hear constantly is charter schools, the growth of charter schools in the state of Nevada, especially here in southern Nevada. I think the last data point was that Nevada charter schools as a system are the second largest, overtaking Washoe County. You know, you hear from some of the parents and stakeholders and advocates that the state is not doing enough, even though Lieutenant Governor Joe Lombardo is a big supporter, proponent of charter schools. But what do you think can be done to support the growth of this, obviously, choice school? Like, parents are choosing to enroll their kids in charter schools.
Yeah, so I was deep in the education work here for about a decade, from about 2010 to 2020. And those numbers you mentioned are incredible growth compared to where the charter school sector was just a decade ago. So it's not only now the second largest, but it really has seen rapid increases in growth, which I think speaks to parent interest and demand. At the Nevada Department of Education, we care about high quality public schools. We have to support all of our schools, traditional district, public charter schools, and so we want to make sure that's very clear, that charter schools are public schools and they're part of our responsibility at NDE. I think, number one, I think it's really important that we hold all schools to a high bar, and charters in particular. There's sort of a bargain that's struck where for more autonomy or for the ability to make a specialized program, there's accountability for charter schools. So if they aren't delivering against their plan, they may not be able to continue to exist. I avoid making sort of apples to apples comparisons between charter schools and painting with broad brushstrokes, because you have to really control for student demographics or for enrollment patterns or choices that families are making, right? But I think the data speaks for itself. They are high demand, they are growing. There is, more infrastructure to support high quality charter schools through nonprofits, through the Charter School Authority that sponsors them. And there's even more cities and municipalities that have been interested in supporting charter schools. And so that's a new policy change for the state.
Do you have any concern within your position about the decline in enrollment at CCSD, while there seems to be an uptick at charter schools?
Well, I don't think it's wise to make it an either or to make it, caused by one or the other, right? We have to support high quality public schools and make sure families have good school options and have great access. So beyond CCSD, there is a different, an emerging pattern of enrollment shifts. So a state that had been grow is not in that moment anymore. So that does take different operational choices for our local districts. We think at the state level about how we prioritize funding and policy in the most strategic way. We now have a pupil-centered funding formula. This was a big shift a few years ago. So our job is to make sure that funding follows students, that it's prioritized for student needs, and then our local districts have to make sometimes tough operational trade-offs, and they need to plan with projections and enrollment in mind. So I think this is a new normal in a way that all of our districts are going to need to operate to make sure that their expenses and their revenues line up. So I avoid sort of any framing where it's one versus the other, but rather how do we just make the best high quality options for all families, support all public school students, and make sure, again, back to my earlier comment, that we're actually driving towards that bar of excellence. And so I like to speak and think about student outcomes as the real goal. How we get there operationally is important, but that's secondary to the real goal of outcomes for students.
So there you heard the state superintendent's position on charter schools. I'm a reporter, not an advocate, right? But over the last, and I say the but because over the last several years, while reporting in Las Vegas, in particular my focus on education, I've talked to a lot of people within the charter school space. Those who are for charter schools and want more charter schools, and those who are vehemently against charter schools. Now, we're going to start with one thing at the top. We have Republican Governor Joe Lombardo, a big supporter of charter schools. Governor Joe Lombardo in 2023 helped pass what was considered as historic education funding. More than $2 billion more he helped secure in education funding for schools, right? That's a lot of money. And he also, with that, ushering in more money to public schools, he helped get some money for charter schools. He helped, and also during this most recent legislative session, he helped charter schools now have access to public transportation. So some charter schools will be able to use school buses. So I bring this up because, charter schools are here to stay. And a lot of states, Nevada included, are using the Arizona's model when it comes to charter schools. Arizona is known for having a very successful charter school model, right? Nevada states are copying that, including Nevada. And what's going on now is at the same time as we're having this growth in charter schools, we're having a decline at public schools, in particular CCSD. And what that does, even though he didn't want to make the correlation, State Superintendent Dr. Victor Wakefield didn't, there is something to be said that with the growth in charter schools, there's a decline in student enrollment at CCSD. There's been at least a 30,000 decline in students at CCSD over the last 3 or 4 years. What that means for CCSD is less money in student funding, not only from the state, but also from the federal government. And CCSD has about more than 300 buildings it has to operate. So this is going to have huge implications moving forward in the future. And so, and at the same time here in the state where you have more charter schools opening, there's also a body that's the State Public Charter School Authority that has been declining a lot of applications for charter schools. So it is becoming much more difficult to open a charter school. And, the question is, do you want more oversight of this growing body of schools that are presenting parents with a new choice? And so, just over I reported on last year, the State Public Charter School Authority closed 2 schools. So, that's just food for thought. So now, next, we're going to move on to student safety, which is a big topic here in CCSD with several kids that have died on the roads. So we're going to have that conversation next. Welcome back to Education Station. I'm Joshua Peguero. This is the last part of the exclusive conversation I had with this new state superintendent, Dr. Victor Wakefield. This next topic is more sobering. Not to say anything about improving student literacy and the growth of charter schools, but this in particular is about the lives lost, students who were killed while on their way to school. And so we've had at least in Southern Nevada, at least 4 or 5 children that have died since May while going to school or in school or leaving school. So I asked him about recently during a special session, Nevada lawmakers doubled the fines and the infractions for school zones. So here's that conversation I had with Dr. Wakefield on that topic.
We had during the special session, they signed this new bill in regards to school safety, doubling of the school zone fines and certain infractions. And I bring this up because, in our conversation, because now safety seems to be not just safety in the classroom, but safety of getting to school and being able to walk around the school seems to be on the concerns of parents nowadays. From your vantage point, is there anything else that the state can do to try to address that?
My heart just breaks for any example where a student is, hit by a vehicle or has a challenge in getting to school. As a parent, I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and we're just starting our school journey with our 4-year-old. You are giving your trust over to that, they're going to be safe and cared for and learn something, right, during that school day. And so I was very pleased to see that this was part of the agenda. This is very much a more local and operational decision than a state policy and funding one, for example. So I am eager to learn more if there is more that we can do at the state level. Special sessions also have a really defined agenda. They can't contemplate policy issues writ large. It has to be on the agenda. So I track that closely. I was pleased to see that was passed. I have heard Superintendent Ebert speak about how important that is. Just logically, the idea that we need to be very strict with our law enforcement related to school zones in particular and speed limits makes a ton of sense to me. I have more to learn if there's more we can do at the state level.
So I have a list here of the students, at least some of the students that were killed this year in Southern Nevada in a school zone We have here Mackenzie Scott. She died in May. She was hit by a drunk driver who was convicted and sentenced last month in November. That's when 18 years old, getting ready to graduate from Arborview High School. Christopher Suarez, he was killed just a month into the school starting by an impaired driver, an alleged impaired driver, because the gentleman hasn't been convicted yet. He doesn't even have a court case or anything. Then we have Haley Ryan, who was killed in a school zone by a school bus driver. Apparently, school bus driver, according to the video, which I obtained, was driving nearly on the bike lane. And Haley Ryan was on a bike heading home from school in a school zone when the bus driver didn't follow the law and hit the Ryan's bike and she ended up crashing into a parked vehicle. And then we have Jalen Braxton, beautiful young girl, 11 years old, killed in the West Side while crossing the street. She was just leaving school cheerleading practice, and she died. The driver wasn't impaired. The driver stayed on the scene, and so far they haven't been charged with any crime, so we're not identifying that driver. But she was crossing in a construction zone that removed the crosswalk. And so in Southern Nevada, we've had a problem of drivers going too fast, not obeying the law, driving impaired or drunk. And so, there's a growing movement among not only administrators, but also lawmakers and law enforcement that enough is enough and we have to increase the penalties. And so, it's unfortunate, but one of the things, I'll end on is that if you're driving in a school zone, to just pay more careful attention, because I don't want to do more stories of kids being hit by cars or dying on the road. So thank you so much for joining us here at Education Station in the exclusive conversation I had with Dr. Victor Wakefield. We will be hearing more from other leaders in the state in education. Thank you so much.